Okay, Anthem, we need to explain where we're at because we're in a strange spot. It reminds me of, do you remember this lovely day 5 years ago, Miller, when we talked about Destiny for the first time? When it's like, hey, Destiny's out and everyone's playing it. And I remember you in particular, we talked about it on the podcast where you're kind of chewing your meal, not sure exactly what's in your mouth yet. Yeah. We're kind of in that phase with Anthem.
Yeah, and if you'll recall, that phase with Destiny lasted about until now.
Yes.
It's...
And it turned out that Destiny was...
Pretty good.
Pretty good!
Right? I mean,
yeah.
Anthem in my mind was always going to be a game that, was going to require a little bit of patience to be at its best. It's impossible to put together a game this complicated and have it release at launch and be perfect. Now, that said...
It's a little too effed up.
Right now, we've seen some big problems here that all three of us who've been playing at this table, I think, have been kind of frustrated about.
Okay, Rander, can you set the scene for what's going on with Anthem right now?
Yeah, full disclosure. Yeah, full disclosure. We're at an impasse right now with the review. I'm supposed to be writing the review, and they released the patch notes for the day one version. So we've been playing in early access on EA.
Well, sure.
Well, it's technically early access on Xbox for a 10-hour trial, and then there's a 10-hour trial on PC. But you can also, if you bought the EA
Legion
Access
of Dawn
Premier
Edition or have EA Access Premier,
you get the full game a week early. Turns out that the patch notes are significant. Like big, huge things that are going to change the grind, the amount of time you spend.
Yeah.
Things that I, in my playthrough, and Miller, thought were kind of bad. Like, this was like one of the worst parts of the game are being addressed in a way that I feel like either I need to start over in my playthrough to see what that is now, what that grind is, because my version of it is no longer applicable.
What people will play.
Right.
Or we get someone else to review it altogether.
So we're still in the process of figuring that out as of the time of this recording.
Yeah, and that's full disclosure. Yeah. And it's really, when you see something like that as a game critic, it's just like, what do you do? I know people posted their reviews already, and I don't fault them for that at all. That was the time they experienced in the game. That's available now, right?
And that people paid for.
And lots of people are paying for it. And for us, we're still in the middle of it, and it's now like changed. You know what I mean? It's what happened to me with Battlefront, which just drove me bonkers, because it was just like everything just changes. Everything you've written is, we didn't publish at the time, is now incorrect.
Right. It's like, okay, I based it on my own experience, but everybody who's going to be reading this, well, a strong majority of them, this experience won't be applicable at all. It's just impossible.
And this is the landscape we live in now of games that get updated, and it's making game reviews very difficult and different. But at the very least, you think day one, what's there on day one should be kind of what you're at least looking at, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
But we're not at day one yet. We're at day 0.5.
Yeah, as you're watching this, you're on the eve of, right?
It does feel like that this change pulls the rug out from underneath the idea of like evaluating the game, because the things that will be changed will so dramatically alter a person's experience of play.
And really, I think what we're talking about here, mainly, there's a lot of things in there, but maybe you've heard, but there is a crazy gate. A gameplay gate. No, not a physical gate.
A stopgap.
Thank you.
A closed gate, let's say.
Four of them.
Yes.
About like 10 hours in, roughly, maybe a little bit less than that, in Anthem, there's a point where it's like, hey, just do free play, explore the world of Anthem, and you have to do all these little checklists to unlock these things, which is it's a brick wall.
Well, and if you look at the achievements on Xbox, maybe by the time you're viewing this now, it's changed, but it was 30% of players finished the mission right before this stopgap, and then it was like 0.3% after that. So that's like right at the 8 to 10 hour mark. Barely anyone was getting through that to the next segment, which, if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, was this created for that demo? Was this
for the 10-hour thing
with the 10 hours in mind? And then, guess what? The patch notes, hey, there's a couple things in there that address that. Maybe. I don't know.
It's confusing.
I mean, if we take a step back, I think there's something worth saying about the difference between the game that can be sort of seen through the mess here, which I actually have some positive things to say about that we'll get to.
Yeah, for sure.
But separating that out from what, by almost any objective measure, has been some big missteps in the opening weeks of rolling out this game. The first demo that was available several weeks ago was really a total disaster. People who had pre-ordered didn't even get to play the game in some instances because it was so broken from a technical perspective. I think the second demo did a little bit better, but at that point the water was already a little bit poisoned in terms of the online conversation around the game. And then we have this like initial rollout on PC for a very particular group of PC players in the effort of like popularizing EA's like Premier program thing, I guess. But like that in the end has felt like a big misstep because you have all these people, you have people who are going in who've been eager to play and be the first to play, and they're having not the best experience that they could have because apparently it's not like the day one final version. And then other people who are pissed off because they were excited about the game and they're not getting to be in on that early experience of exploring things. So like all that stuff has combined to really make for a in these days, especially with a live game like this, make for a kind of a toxic conversation in the broader community, which is unfortunate because I think there's good things in the game.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the last time I play a game early through EA Access. Like, I've been burned twice on it now. Like, and what we're looking at
from your vantage point, or you think even like people listening and watching this, they should just hold off on all that stuff?
I think everybody should. Yeah. I mean, this again, all the press out there is pretty negative about the tomb, right? This mission we're talking about that is this stopgap, and we haven't tested the game once the patch is in yet, so we don't know how significant it's going to change it. But I have a hard time believing that all the playtesters, everyone at BioWare, released this game where 4 people are on the battlefield at once, and credit only goes to the one person that opens the first person that opens the chest.
It's like, hey, you got to open 5 chests or whatever it is.
No one in focus testing made it. Yeah. No one at BioWare. BS. It's seriously,
it's crazy.
And everybody immediately, the public, once they started playing it, this was a huge issue.
Yeah.
And there's also structural things about the way this content's presented that just rubs people the wrong way. I mean, I don't think it's unusual in a game like Destiny or The Division or now with Anthem to have things like this where you have content that you're like, oh, I'm going to try to get this really cool weapon and I've got to do this kind of grindy thing to get it for a while. Like, I think that's kind of accepted and I don't even know that it's necessarily something that's upsetting for everybody. There is something that can be fun about like a grind for something that you really want and that you want to, I mean, even World of Warcraft still like embraces that model. But here it's like right at a point in the story that it feels awful to have happen. Right as things are kind of ramping up into a sensation of like, oh, we really got a cool sci-fi story on our hands. You have this, it's like all of a sudden reading a novel and then there's 5 chapters on something you don't care about before you can follow through and get like the big story beat.
And or the editor coming in and just being like, here's kind of how I built this stuff.
Yeah.
Like just kind of breaking your immersion. And it's like Miller's saying, there's this point in the lore where you're learning about these tombs and you're like, oh, this is cool. And you go out, you find one of the tombs in the open world. It's telling you to embrace free play, right? Like go out and find these.
And it happens in all those games, right? It's the point where it's like, okay, they want you to branch out a little bit, explore a little bit. There it is. But then once you see what you hit,
you click on the door and it's like, you're not worthy because you haven't completed 5 world quests, opened 15 chests.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, chests, what we were just talking about, the first person in a party to open it gets the credit. So you need to open 15 of these. By the time I got to the door, I had 3. But I've opened probably 12 with my team at that point.
But you hadn't been rushing to them.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And again, like I can't believe that this got through.
Yeah, like because on its surface, it was supposed to be like, I want to say that they wanted to track your progress throughout the entire game, right? But then there were bugs where it's like it wasn't tracking my progress at all. Depending on what menu you were looking at those objectives in, it tracked different progresses. So like, yeah, it was one of those things where I had like the way I got that chest thing was that there's a chest that you can get in pretty early into that world that I just would go in, dive into the waterfall, get that chest, and then reload that instance.
Sucks ass.
Here's something. I got this. Miller's like, there's a video out there you can watch that shows you where the chests are. Do that. That's what I did. So I booted it up. You can't do free play single player. So I went into the world, dropped down into that waterfall to get that first chest. Some other player already claimed it in that instant.
So you gotta load
reloaded it.
But the load times are fine, right?
Oh, God. But those are getting addressed in the patch, too.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
But that's on their docket.
Yeah.
And then, so I reloaded again, went into free play again, dropped down to get that chest. In that instance, it was gone as well. At that point, I was just like, I can't believe this is happening.
You're basically like gambling just to do quest progress, and the stuff that's in the chest isn't great. So it's not like you're like, oh, cool, got all these items out of the quest. It's
which sucks, because I was at a point in this game where I'm like, I'm enjoying this a lot more than I thought. I went in pretty skeptical, and it was one of those things of like, wait, why am I surprised to be enjoying a BioWare game? It's like, that is a weird statement, but then with this roadblock, I'm like, I don't know if I'll play past this.
And
unless it's severely addressed.
That's the state of where we're at. That's a long story, but we wanted to get it out there and let you know where we're at.
Yes.
But, I mean, that's exactly where we're at. We're waiting for this patch to hit to see what we're going to do with this review, because right now it's a mess.
Right.
And we don't want to, we want to do it right. We want to make sure we give the game a fair shake. We don't have these viewpoints from, all over the place as we've been playing. So we'll see what we do.
So in Anthem, you're flying exosuits around, actually.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about this at all.
Yeah, the game itself is a lot of fun. The movement system, you being Iron Man, basically.
Yeah.
Is done really well, and Marvel should be knocking on their door, banging on their door, please make an Iron Man game, because that would be awesome. But yeah, being in these suits feels great. The weapons that you have, they're a little sloppy in precision, which makes me thankful it doesn't have multiplayer. But for mowing down hordes of enemies, it works pretty well.
And you're going to be doing a lot of that. But just that base level, I know people have talked about it since the first hands-on, even our cover story back in the day, but it's still shocking to me after a fair amount of time in this world that just jumping up and just rocketing off, the impact, I think the sound design of taking off in those exosuits, always satisfying. It reminds me, Miller, of, do you remember in Fall of Cybertron when you're playing as Vortex? Mm-hmm. It reminds me of that, where you're turning into the jet and just taking off over and over again. There's just something so satisfying about that momentum.
Yeah, I mean, it for me, my comparison's maybe even a little further away from the actual experience, but it reminds me of in some ways what I liked about the early Halo 30-second loop kind of thing.
Okay.
Right? The idea that they've nailed this one very specific thing that's just endlessly fun, which is that you have this big, beautiful, vertical space world to explore. And it's just always fun to be like, okay, we just finished a fight. I'm going to jump up in the air. I'm going to hit my rocket pack, and I'm going to zoom off into the distance. And I'm now many hours in, and I still just have a blast doing that. And the controls to do it are, I think, probably the best 3D motion controls I've encountered in a game.
3D motion controls.
As in moving, not like motion controls.
In terms of player movement in the environment.
Being able to move in a 3D space.
And just moving through the game world is very satisfying. And
well, there's like Spider-Man. Then Spider-Man's pretty recent if you want to just go base movement. I know it's a little bit different.
It is very good. Very
really
good.
Yeah.
And it's also breathtaking, like visually. It looks really, really great. It's not maybe the most gigantic play space that any game has had, at least here at launch. But I think that's going to expand over time. And what is there just is evocative and alien, and yet simultaneously familiar. It's just a great play space.
The thing I was like, what does this remind me of as I'm flying around? And it hit me. It was like, oh, it's like Uncharted. Like you're always in a jungle of some sort or some kind of forested area. There's a lot of greenery, and then you find some kind of ancient ruin kind of tucked in there, and you want to go explore it.
Yeah.
That's like the whole world is that way, right? Like I haven't found a lot of variety in the world,
right?
Unless you tunnel somewhere else later in the game. But I do love just the vistas that they've put together, and the hints at old civilizations being a part of this. I want to know more about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It is a little bit like, it forces you to play free play and these dumb tombs. It's like, all right, I'll just get to walk around the world a little bit. I'm kind of underwhelmed by the activities that I'm encountering out there, but
you're
at the
not
same
doing
time,
much outside of the things that pop up, like
Right.
the random quests or world events, whatever they call
But
them.
just on a superficial level, it is, just that impact of like, oh, this scenery looks so awesome. And it is Derek Watts, is the same art director as the Mass Effect trilogy and stuff. And I think that art team did an awesome job.
Yeah.
And I think even the flying factors into combat as well. Like the way you can sort of crowd control and sort of like prioritize different targets based on your ability to dash and, hover.
Well,
I think it makes this feel like unique among these types of games.
There's smart decisions like the Storm class Javelin. That's the name of the mechs. The Javelins can hover as it's in combat. Whereas other ones are maybe a little bit more ground-based.
They can do it, but it takes long. Like
They can't
they're
do it
more
as long.
limited.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they have a dynamic where if you are using the different classes, you see different things unfold in the combat. And the Storm is just like the ultimate wizard, right? Like just
Awesome.
unleashing fire, lightning, and as Miller said, it's gorgeous. And I think some of the best particle effects and just explosions I've seen
Certainly
in
the
game.
most particle effects.
But
Your eyes might hurt after playing this game
it's
for 4
effective.
hours.
It's effective. It looks cool, but there's definitely moments in combat where it's like blue, red, sparks flying all over the place. Like, I don't know what's happening. I need to just rocket out of here and get my bearing.
I find myself thinking frequently as I play this game about how much fun I had with Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, which makes sense. This is another BioWare game. For people who share my enthusiasm for that experience, the combat here feels like that, but more mobile and vertical because of the flight component.
Like Mass Effect Andromeda, and you can hover in the combat. It makes me think a lot about that. Actually, yeah.
I mean, you have that like it's not going for the same super tight actiony kind of thing that you might have in, like, let's say a Destiny, right? But the combat is still really satisfying because you're putting together interesting combinations of different abilities. They don't emphasize this enough, but the whole like primer detonator thing
for combos.
is a pretty satisfying thing to pay attention to.
I have
Why
nothing-
they didn't focus on that and like tutorialize it, I don't understand.
What is it? I've never done this. What is
basically, every ability that you get is either there's a
Not everyone, but a lot of
like
them.
a lot of them have are either a primer or a detonator. In which, so if you have abilities of different elements with, so a primer is basically the setup, and then the detonator is the thing that sort of detonates the combo
big
and
damage.
It's a punchline.
Yeah, and triggers a ton of damage. Like not all abilities do this, but most of the ones
They tell
that I
you in
found.
the
yeah, it's
menus.
either a circle or like a little
Okay.
like ninja star looking thing.
But to open one of those tomb doors, Ben Hansen, you're going to need to do some combos.
Joke's on you. I probably will never open a tomb door.
So that stuff is like, even though for a lot of my playtime I've sort of used the same combo of like freeze them and then drop lightning on them, right?
Because it looks awesome.
Because it looks cool. But like even just like the very minor decision of like using ice before I use lightning makes me feel smart, even though that's not like an incredible like decision, right? So you can sort of spec your character in a way that makes the gunplay like, even though it's not the greatest, it kind of minimizes sort of its importance. Because there are certain builds that I've had, even like as I've played, that I am not using a gun for like a minute and a half, basically, because I'm just spamming abilities.
Yeah.
And I think like how different each of the classes are, I think is really cool as well, because like they take up different positions on the map, and you can feel more like a part of a team.
There was clearly some decision making on the creative side at some point in this game's development that valued accessibility maybe a little too highly, rather than the strategic depth that I think the game is capable of in its combat.
And maybe towards the end game that'll change.
I
little bit,
hope
yeah.
I'm not at the end game yet,
Yeah.
but I hope that I see more of that as I get deeper into the game, because right now there isn't enough sense of like a need for cooperation. It's a multiplayer game, pure and simple. You should play this game, if at all possible, with 2 or 3 of your friends playing alongside you. It's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
play it solo, and it'll make you up with people, but it's more fun with other people. And yet, in those fights, there's not enough stuff that makes me say like, okay, hey Reiner, I need you to circle around, like head over there, because I've got this one ability where I can hit this guy with my ice blast, and he's weak to this, and you
The
don't
only
get
ti-
that sensation as much as you should.
The only time I did that was in the Stronghold.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like their really difficult dungeon, basically, right?
It's something that I think with time people will suss out builds of like, okay, we're rolling as a group before, we're trying to do the hardest difficulty. You run nothing but primers and we'll be all detonators. And so that way we can all just like do a ton of damage after you've done
It
the
has
specific thing.
that potential.
But and so far it doesn't, like, I've just been playing the game mostly solo, and I feel like that's like a pretty good way to play it because I think the story kind of like messes with the pacing of this being a co-op.
I don't want to play with my friends because I was enjoying the story and was following along pretty well. And the idea of like forcing everybody to shut up so I can hear the VO during the missions.
There's a lot of VO in the missions.
Yeah. And then like waiting for all your buddies to take care of their part back at Fort Tarsus, like the headquarters, basically the tower equivalent in Destiny. Like that just feels like an uncomfortable, terrible rhythm and not a good experience with my friends.
There is I think the story is engaging, but there's like the way the game is structured, it feels like it is geared towards that grind. So I was like, you know, in terms of this being a podcast game, I was constantly tempted to just like, okay, here's the mission. I'm just going to put on a podcast and I'm going to grind this out. But the stuff that was actually happening was engaging enough that I didn't do that. Yep. So it's almost in a way I'm looking forward to the part where the story is over so I can just start listening to podcasts.
Oh God, what's better than listening to podcasts?
Part of the problem, the way it's structured is like you only have normal and hard difficulties available from the outset. And both of those have been pretty easy with people
even
that know
hard,
what they're doing.
You should play on hard.
Yeah, exactly. Like start
just
on
to
hard.
get the XP.
Yeah, you get an XP bonus. If
And
you play on
the
hard.
better loot, I guess. But I wish the other levels were there so I could at least try those and see, you know, like what that team dynamic could really be like. Because I only briefly got a taste of it in that stronghold where we kind of had to work together because the big spider boss, which they've shown at E3 and all that stuff, was a bullet sponge, right? Like that thing took a while to take down.
Yeah, the enemies also aren't leading to much cooperation that I've seen so far. It's like, okay, there's a guy with the shield. You got to have somebody behind him. That's about as complex as I've seen.
Snipers and turrets, you kind of take out those first. Everybody kind of does that.
Like the turrets have like a giant
free-for-all.
pack on the back of them so someone has to fly behind them and then the other people can shoot it in its weak point. But you don't have to do that. You can just lay into it with a bunch of supers and you know.
There is a nice variety of enemies. It's just that the enemies themselves don't feel unique enough from one another.
Right.
Like there's the wyverns and there's the scorpions and there's the scar and like there's a bunch of different enemy types and I think that's cool.
Right.
But it often just kind of comes down to, okay, I'm flying through the air, I crash down, I wreck some stuff, I take back off. Like it never elevates past that right now.
For sure.
Unless it's an elite or legendary enemy that has its own shields, can take flight, kind of functions like you do. Most of the fights are kind of handled in the same way so far.
Yeah.
And the what do you guys think about the mission objectives?
Hey, there's a
Fly
thing
to
nearby.
destination.
Use the radar to find it, or hold down this point. Like that.
Yeah.
Those are really like it's either that or clear every enemy. Like
Collect
that.
the
Those
sparks.
are the three. Yeah. Collect the echoes.
Oh, you mean the
around
echoes that are the echoes from the Anthem of creation?
I mean, there's an odd thing about the pacing because it is so rote most of the time. It feels almost like a mistake when you get to these moments where there's something you actually have to pay attention to.
100%. Like that first mission where like you meet, oh my God, what is it, the minion, the monitor, right? And it's just like, oh, here's like a real like story mission out in the wilderness. I didn't expect this. I'm used just to kind of like a VO guiding you to, hey, go rescue Matthias, whatever the hell.
For people that are concerned that BioWare is leaving behind story, do not be concerned. There's a lot of it. They have cutscenes, like lengthy cutscenes that appear. Maybe it's a little too predictable at times, and they struggle again with the main villain.
The monitor is embarrassing. That crap sucks. He's just as bad so far as the Archon from Mass Effect Andromeda, which was
100%.
one of the worst villains I've ever seen in a game.
Like, that said, I do like a lot of the way the quests are oriented towards these characters that I find interesting. Like a lot of the main stuff can be like interesting on a plot level, but like a lot of the characters behind it aren't interesting. But like doing side quests, I think has been cool because like you there are these through lines between them that feel sort of more involved in terms of what you are learning about these people. Like versus Destiny basically them being walking vending machines where you're like, all right, hey, what's up? I'm taking stress. See you later.
Even in a few missions, you learn more about a character like Bryn, the Sentinel, than you did in the first year and a half of Destiny learning about Ikora. Right?
Interesting.
And that's cool. I mean, whether you like the characters or not, I don't know. I mean, I think some of them are pretty fun.
They have
but
Yeah, and they have the kind of a weird problem on their hands where you go back to your fort, and that's an instance unique to every player. You go back to the fort, and there's a bunch of people that want to talk to you, like going onto your ship in Mass Effect, where you want to get the story, progress your kind of relationships with them, and learn more about the lore. But if you're in a multiplayer session with your friends, you kind of speed past that.
Oh, that's a stopgap of like, hey, everybody, now I'm doing this. Oh, I didn't know I had to talk to this person. Everybody, like, chill out for a second while I talk to this person.
Well, it's like, hey,
Everybody shut up.
let's reconvene in 15 minutes.
I know, it's
I mean,
right.
it can be significant
Right, and
any
like,
time you're at the
that
fort.
sucks.
And those are on like, they're not like incredible stories or anything, but they're just engaging enough that I want to
There's-
see them through.
Yeah.
And like, there's some of them that you don't even need a quest, like basically talking, to Kristen Shaw's character where she's just talking to you about the baby animal she's been petting or whatever.
Wait, which character is that?
The shopkeeper for the materials.
Oh, okay.
Like the
I'm
mob
pretty-
girl.
She's the one that is like, I told Miller, like breaking the lore. She's making like Godfather quotes.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
I'm
haven't
like,
talked to
what
her, I
is
don't think.
happening?
She's like right by the forge.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So and like there are quests that basically resolve without you ever going on a mission, and it's just to enrich that world. And I think it works well enough to sort of like be a thing where you're not just grinding out missions.
right, you're going to the bars and people to talk to around there,
Right.
stuff like that.
But
yeah.
I feel like there are like at numerous points in the game, it feels like it clashes with this game's constant inclination to have you grinding out missions.
There's things like where you can pick up documents and read, and I know people don't like that, but I think anthems are really interesting most of the time, where you'll go over to one faction and they'll have one belief on what the anthem is, whereas you go to another one, they're like, we don't even know if this thing's real. So you get this kind of like taste of how the society is uncertain about the anthem itself.
But the
just in
ciphers
what-
can listen to the anthem, and it's beautiful. They wouldn't trade it for the world. They mentioned
Some good
anthem
boot back going.
so many times at the
you-
start of this game.
See, I actually think that the whole cipher and anthem and listening to it, it's like a cool element of the fiction.
I know,
I
but
think so,
I'll
too.
have to go
Yeah.
back to it. But the first 3 hours of Mass Effect, I don't remember them saying the phrase Mass Effect 700 times. you know?
Maybe not.
The one thing I'll say though, like sometimes you'll click on a document and it'll be like a shopping list, and you're like,
What is
what is the? And
Maybe
it's like,
there's something, yeah.
we want you to believe the world is like lived in, so these are kind of things you'd find.
I feel like if I were to highlight on the sort of single player experience side of things that
Yeah.
they seem to have wanted to emphasize, I would highlight two really big missed opportunities that I do think they could resolve in subsequent evolutions of this game. One of them is that the choices that they tried to imply should matter don't.
Right.
Like, you talk to these characters, and there's a binary choice, which I think is doable. I think you could have it be binary and have it be really simple, but they should really change things. Like, in your version of Fort Tarsus, things should be dramatically different. Like, and they're not. You feel like most of the decisions you make in those decision trees just don't have weight to them.
Absolutely.
And so you don't start to pay attention to them in the way that you could in like another role-playing game. So you lose that. And then on the other side of like choice and customization, the other big thing that I feel like this game has missed the boat on, at least at launch, is a sense of customization of your character and of the way you look. And they have this great system for like applying different paint and materials and stuff that I think is awesome.
Yeah.
It's very Armored Core, yeah.
The actual thing at launch, you have like one or two things for every class to
Yeah.
put themselves in.
Yeah, and like there's the one you have. I think there's like the one if you got the special edition, and then there's a set you can buy with
Yeah.
like microtransactions.
It's-
Well, and that's the thing; they only offer a couple in microtransactions.
Yeah, there's just not a whole
There's
lot in
no
that
like
store.
N7 stuff,
Yeah.
any of that.
and it's
Well, there's like a paint for N7.
Yeah, but
right?
you have to like. Most of it is like implied that you craft. You got to buy the crafting materials to be able to build the stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten to the point where like that stuff is super like necessary or involved at all.
I've gotten to the point where I don't think it's that interesting. It's like, okay, I made the exosuits look the way I want. Fine. I haven't thought about it again. But like every time characters talk about it, especially Prospero, right? The vanity store man, is a microtransaction man. Basically, he's like, hey, this is where it gets fun. Come on in, customize this, show off your exosuit in the social space. Like, I don't think I
mean,
give an S.
In a lot of ways, they've created the story conceit around it that it's even more important than it is in a game in like Destiny,
Yeah.
right, or World of Warcraft with the outfit that you and the armor pieces you wear in an MMO. Here, it's like you are inextricably tied to your javelin, and your signet is unique to your javelin, and you're the only person who can control it, and it's your lifeline out there in the wilderness. And yet, there just isn't a lot of energy that's been put into these incredibly cool-looking things, letting you feel like you're making it your own.
Right. They put a lot of work into contextualizing that stuff in the context of the world of like, hey, if you feel confident about it, you're going to inspire more people. And so like if you're intimidating your enemies by looking cool or whatever, like that might make you more effective as a freelancer. Except they don't do anything.
And you look exactly like everybody else. Like if you're playing a Colossus, you kind of look like all the other Colossi out there.
Except the colors are different. Like that's literally the biggest difference.
Do you guys have that weird issue too, where it's like loading up, and as your exosuit's like getting ready to go on the mission, it'll be like the default color, and then it'll like pop in. I'm playing on PC. I don't know if it's like what it's like on Xbox right now, but
Same.
Okay, yeah.
These things that I'm talking about here, I'm highlighting because in a lot of ways they are things that are solvable issues, right? Like I feel like this game has really tremendous potential, but it is not anywhere near to that full potential at launch, and that's okay. I mean, like these are really hard games to put together, but it's disappointing to see so much stuff, just like so many obvious things left on the table that could make the game, that could have been like focal points, that it's just missed opportunities.
Especially when a lot of it feels like they went down a list of like a checklist of like, here's complaints that people have about like Destiny or the Division, where it's like you matchmake it into everything. We're not going to ever let you play alone. Everything is the same group activity. So you're never like, okay, well, we're playing Crucible, so we need 4 people versus a Strike where we need 3 or 6 or for a raid. And like there's a lot of like quality of life stuff that I think sort of improves upon what people want. But there are so many other areas where you look at it and it's like, why didn't you also like sort of keep the parts that are good about these other games? So it seems like there's a lot of like up and down overall.
There's a lot of just weird stuff. I don't know if you guys had this issue too, but it's like, okay, here's the mission I'm on. I'm gonna load into this mission, not even quick play necessarily, but like start as an expedition. Long ass loading screen, way too MFing long. You finally get in the game, and it's like, oh, the mission has already started, and I've missed like some lines of dialogue, and then there's a warning on the bottom saying like, you're too far away from your teammates. I'm like, I just spawned in, and then it's like, all right, here's a countdown. You got to get your teammates in this time. Like, okay, I'll fly over there.
You'll often start missions mid-mission.
But then that's not even the worst part, because then I'm not able to get to my teammates in time, and then all right, another huge ass loading screen, and then it'll warp you in, and you're in a place you don't know what's going on. There's Owen, your buddy, is like mid-sentence. Like, I don't know what's happening here.
That happened to me once out of, I don't know, 60 jumps, something like that.
Okay.
So it's not like, it doesn't happen often.
It happened to me for a little while. Like it's been somewhat frequent.
I suspect it happens more often in quick play, where you're just saying like, hey, put me into a mission. My experience is similar to Reiner's. I haven't seen it too much when I've been the one like, I want to go do this mission.
Right. And I've
had it happen mid-mission where it's like they take off to the waypoint, and I'm just like gathering some supplies, and all of a sudden it's like, you have 30 seconds to get back to your team. And I'm like, oh God, okay, I better go back. Or catch up to them. Yeah. But that's the only time I've seen that come up.
But it wasn't even quick play that I'm talking about. I'm talking about like starting the expedition on my own. Quick play is something else entirely, where apparently it can put you in like the final mission of the game, which they do have some warnings about, like, hey, there might be spoilers. But on the cover story trip, talking to BioWare, they definitely talked about like, you're not really going to be spoiled by doing quick play or playing in the open world. But like, that's not true.
That's not true.
There's more story through the VO in those situations than I think I was even expecting. And I think some stuff can be spoiled, even if it's not a cutscene back in Fort Tarsis or anything.
Yeah.
Very strange.
It's just strange release, and it's not at its best yet, but
I'm enjoying it.
Me too.
I'll say that.
I am.
Weird. We complained about it a lot.
Weird.
I know.
But those gameplay loops are fun, and it's just the little things that just keep dinging your experience, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just like, I got to do what now?
Yeah.
It might be the most complicated game to evaluate in 2019. That's what it feels like. It's just so all over the place, you know? Also, it's funny. I don't know about funny, but it's interesting caring about like the setup for the game. And I love a big studio like BioWare and a big publisher like EA, at least going for it and swinging for the rafters, for the fences, however you want to put it, trying to make a new IP. I think it's it's a tall order. It's fun to experience a new world, and then start to figure out like, why are they taking this certain track? And there's a weird beat in the beginning just talking about like, boy, these freelancers, they really got the crap beat out of them. Like their reputation's really in the gutter here. And it's like, you think about where BioWare was coming from when coming up with the story. It was like Mass Effect 3 ending was still a huge deal.
You feel
in that
like
studio.
there's some resonance there.
I really do
that's
think
possible.
that's a 1-to-1.
Can I make an appeal right now in
Yeah.
case by some miracle there's an Electronic Arts representative listening to this conversation right now?
Yeah, you have to look directly in the camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please don't give up on this game after 3 months. That is my deepest worry, is that Anthem is a game that has a lot of potential, but like the other games that are in this style of loot and shoot and progress your character, it's just going to take some time before it is going to be really good. Say what you will about like the now dissolved relationship between Activision and Bungie, but like that was a relationship that recognized that it was going to take some time before the game could be at its best, right? And Electronic Arts has not in recent years exhibited the capability to be patient with something in the way that you're going to have to if you want Anthem to be a success. And I really, really hope that they get that and that they're like,
Yeah,
there's
it's a
some
multi-year
cool-
plan, not
Absolutely.
just like, let's see how you do in your first month.
And if they can do that, I think Anthem could go to someplace cool, presuming that the community out there is willing to also have a little patience.
And I think it's especially tempting for them to do that in the wake of like Apex Legends of like, well, we have a game we can, siphon money from the foreseeable future. So you guys all start converging on Dragon Age at this point. Like if this doesn't
Or
do
they
as
could
well
just
as
close up BioWare, which would suck.
Yeah, which would be awful.
I don't want that to happen because
They are so important to our industry.
Absolutely.
Some of the best storytellers. They cannot go away.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love BioWare. No, but just talking about like some of the best storytellers. I'm looking at this villain. I played Mass Effect Andromeda.
Commander Shepard is one of the greatest characters.
Playing this, it reminds me of like how important BioWare is, and people think BioWare #1 writing story, right? #1 by a mile, and that comes down to, I understand it's a group effort, but that's like a handful of writers, right? And when there's people rotating out, people leaving BioWare, new people coming in.
That's the same with every game company to date. Even you look at like Naughty Dog, you have different people working on Last of Us 2. It's not the same crew. You have the same person shepherding it.
Exactly.
But there are different writers working on it now.
Yeah, but it's still Neil Druckmann. I
Well,
mean,
he's there, but I'm saying like the other people that it takes many people to put these things together, it's a different crew.
Absolutely. I'm just saying it's weird for this entire studio, so many talented people, and then for so much of that pressure to be boiled down to this small group of writers that does rotate through.
Yeah, but you have a bar for that field of your profession, right? Like
Right.
you're trying to bring in the best of the best.
Do you think Anthem's hitting that bar so far?
I think it has the potential to, I got to see where it goes.
Yeah.
I don't know why they struggle so much with villains at that company. I really, I'm kind of
insane.
baffled by that.
It's
But
insane. Can I read some dialogue from this fella?
but there are things in that game that I like, and there are characters that I'm.
I feel like you're the dude at a presidential debate right now who's just been waiting for the moment.
Oh, did I write down quotes
You
from the
sprung my
movie?
trap.
I
It's
forget.
time for
Yeah.
me to attack.
No, this monitor guy. He has the same nonsense that Mass Effect Andromeda's villain has, where it's just like him constantly putting the character down, and then eventually you'll get the upper hand and be like, oh, what has happened to me? I don't know where the story goes. I assume it's going that direction. But the monitor has a line where it's like, I think it's important to take measure of your adversary, and I find you lacking. That kind of crap. It's like, okay, fine. It's so clearly over the top villain. He's so clearly
He's a George
Darth
Lucas.
Vader.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
insane. Okay, there's a line here too, where the monitor says, hey, give up now and spare the agony. And then the freelancer here, main character, says, agony is going to be this bullet up your ass. Those are those moments where I sit back and
like
Yeah.
that one.
it's like, come
Get that
on,
bullet
BioWare.
in there.
Come on, BioWare.
I think that in the age of video games that we currently reside in, it is increasingly important to acknowledge, and we've talked about this on this podcast before,
Yeah.
that there are a bunch of disciplines at play in the story and narrative of a game. It is not just storytelling. It's about world building. It's about script.
Yes.
It's about
Presentation.
voice actors. It's presentation. There's a lot of factors, and I think it's a disservice to BioWare if we don't give credit where it's due. That they have done some remarkable world building
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
This is a really cool place and history to inhabit. I'm with you. Some of the individual beats of story
Now,
are maybe not totally there.
yeah, the bullet in the ass is a real. That's a real coming of age story because it's like,
Oh,
if this character knew you go for the headshot,
right.
so it's a 3-part arc. You
That's
first
right,
you shoot him
yeah.
in the butt, and then the chest, and then third
Right,
game the
right.
head. You learn.
And
Yep.
Owen seems to be in the early hours of the game the character you interact with the most.
He gives a lot of thumbs up.
Oh my God, are his arms all over the place? It's like really like personality equals arm movements, right? Okay, Owen, got it.
The second I heard him, I'm like, oh no, this is the cat or the who's the characters from Knights of the Old Republic everybody hated.
Mission?
No,
Oh, there's Mission.
Oh, I can't remember. There's
Karth?
always Karth Onasi.
Oh,
okay.
There's
Karth.
always a character like that in a BioWare game where you're like, oh, he's just going to be around everywhere.
I don't mind Owen.
No, he has grown on me as the game has gone on.
I
He's
think-
actually a part of a pretty big mission. That's a
Yeah.
kind of cool story moment.
And like this, it speaks to where we started our conversation, which is that like the whole stop sign thing of the tombs,
Yeah.
like it breaks things up in a way that's really too bad because I think that they, at the point that it happens, had just begun ramping into some good
Yeah.
storytelling.
Like
and
Halleck
I'm
and
now,
Faye are,
Yeah,
I'm
those are my
past that
favorite
now,
characters,
and I
for sure.
really like straight up. You said you might just not finish the tombs, and
Yeah.
that makes me sad because like the stuff that happens after that, where you start really getting a sense of like, okay, this is my crew now, right?
Right,
like I'm
right.
teaming up with these guys, and
Yeah.
there's some tension with this guy who like we had a rough thing that happened 2 years ago. Like all that stuff starts to kind of form up into a coherent storyline
Yeah.
in the hours afterwards. And I think you're going to be one of a lot of people who like get to that point and are like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's too bad because I think there's the potential for some cool stuff
I
there.
completely agree. I also think at this point it's too bad that BioWare structured the game like they did for this
Sure,
section.
oh
you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. I don't fault you for like falling off at this point. I'm
Yeah.
saying it's like that thing extra sucks because of what it
Yes,
prevents you
yeah.
from seeing.
Yeah.
Well, come Friday, it might be a different story
Yes,
in terms
exactly.
of progress. If you already started on PC, though, will it track does it know that these chests were opened in your playthrough and give you
I
credit?
don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, guys, as they say in the world of Anthem, strong alone, stronger together.
And we'll talk about it next week when
Yes.
we have a
Yeah,
review,
yeah.
maybe.
That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.